This is a tube to plate test, a 5F position using 7018 electrodes with Andrew Carden. Here's the joint. This is 2-inch pipe with 1/4-inch plate. Nothing fancy. Apologize for the crappy audio coming up, but I want Andrew to explain it in his own words, so I just left it alone. So you have to stop there so
that's a fracture. So that's where the fracture comes from, and that's where the macro comes from. They take this whole section, they cut that from there to there, up this way and up this way, and they break it this way. And they do the fracture test between here, but they want to see a restart in the middle.
Gotcha. We're going to be using 332 7018s here, and because there are macro etch tests, got to get penetration in that root, so we're running about 90 to 95 amps. And as you will see in just a minute, Andrew has to make that stop and restart on that break test area. So we're only going to weld maybe an inch or inch and a half here, but got a good and a hot puddle going, trying to hold a nice tight steady arc, and coming up on the mark where he marked that he needs to stop, and there we go. I have found, and Andrew has found, and I've had old timers show me this before, if you can reposition your body and quickly get right back into a puddle, you don't really need to chip slag. In this case, we had to reposition the camera. We hit it with a chip and hammer and with a little wire brush. But restarts can definitely be made. If you can get right back in there while that thing's almost red hot, you can make a nice restart without any defects in there. This is a test on rod angle, body positioning, constantly moving your body and your wrists and your hands to get a good line of sight. And if you have to kneel, you got to plan ahead for when you stand up from a kneeling position and things like that. Doesn't take long for a small coupon like this to heat up, so we're going to have to let that thing cool a minute. It's still glowing red. So after it cools off for a minute, while it's still good and warm though, Andrew's going to hit it with a wire wheel. I won't show a lot of that, but get it ready for the next side. Pay close attention here to the way Andrew Q-sticks the rod, so he steadies up the rod to restart on that bottom. No arc strikes allowed outside the weld zone on a test like this or most any other test. So steadying up that rod so it's not flopping around there is key to making a good restart arc strike where you weld back over your arc strikes. I can't emphasize that enough. Arc strikes can fail you on a test. In the field, usually you can take care of them with a grinder, but on a test, they can fail you. They can send you packing. It would be unusual to take a test like this for a certification for an initial higher end or a gate test. Andrew went to take this one specifically to qualify for one weld in the field, and we'll show that at the end. Kind of a weird thing. It happens sometimes. This is one of those times when Andrew's going to chuck the rod up, and that weld is so hot, there's no need to chip slag. Just going to get right back in there while it's still glowing, and that'll make a nice, good, blended in restart. Again, trying to not use too much of a push angle, but it's inevitable on a joint out of position like this. There's a lot of leeway as long as you manipulate the rod correctly and you hold that good tight arc. Now that's it. Just hit it with a wire wheel now, and we'll take a look at it, and that would be the test. Now where Andrew works, it's mostly larger diameter pipe, and it's mostly 60-10, 70-10, and stuff like that. So he needed to get this qualification to go make one weld out of state, and I'll show you that in just a second. You ready for this? All right, coming up in just a second, here is the weld, and it's Andrew in the field doing the weld that he took this test for. It's nothing but a simple socket weld end cap. But that's the way certification works. This is an LNG, that's liquefied natural gas plant of some kind, and the job required a certified welder. And by looking at all the tables and charts in the code books, they determined they didn't have a certified welder for this particular weld, and so they sent Andrew to take that simple 5F tube to plate test to weld this simple single socket weld. But that happens sometimes. But what's obvious here is it probably took Andrew longer time to set up his machine, roll out his leads, maybe pull up a truck close enough to do the job. I don't know which machine he used, if he used his portable welder or his Dynasty, but a lot of times it takes longer to roll out leads than it does to do a weld. But that is the nature of the beast. And if you put it all together, it took a lot of effort in qualifying the test, waiting for the results, getting in the truck, driving to make this weld. Another thing that kind of jumps out at you is this is just real work. He's got his safety harness on. I don't know the safety requirements of this plant, but a lot of plants you'd have to have a hard hat. You have to have a Welding helmet attached to some ears on a hard hat and all kinds of other stuff too. But just wanted to show you the real world application here and what it takes to get there by having to go take a test sometimes.